So let's bring in someone as well who's been watching this process very closely for us, as well is Kganki Matabane, who's the Chief Executive Officer at the Black Business Council. Mr. Matabane, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. There have been calls, even yesterday, when we were listening to some of the Spaza shop owners, they were saying that this deadline needs to be extended. It's now been extended to February next year. Your thoughts on that?
Good evening, Bongi, and good evening to the viewers of SABC News. We welcome the extension. I think from the first day we knew it was not going to be possible to register all the Spaza shops in the country in the days that were given. We always knew that the 17th of December deadline was never necessarily going to be practical. But as you know, you have to put pressure to the system. So we welcome that. We agreed with government that it must be tight so that each and every person can feel the pressure. You know, South Africans, we've worked with South Africans for a long time. If you don't give deadlines, nothing will ever happen. And then looking at the urgency of the situation, because people were dying, I think it made sense. But we knew that it was never going to be possible, especially because there are just so many complications. You just mentioned some of them. The rezoning alone, if you apply for a rezoning for a business, it takes forever. And also remember, if you are in a township, there will be a certain amount of space that is needed. So they will say you have to be certain meters from the road, and if you look at most of the Spaza shops, they are almost at the road. So are you going to say people must demolish or not? But I think those are the issues that we're dealing with as we speak.
So given this new deadline then, can an issue like that be resolved by February next year possibly?
I think it will work if there's a working together, unlike where there are silo mentalities where people are doing what they think is necessary. But we have to get the entire machinery, the health inspectors, the local government, the local municipalities, and also the wards themselves to work together. So that if, for example, the health inspectors are going to a certain section of a township, everyone else must go there so that at least they can complete everything. The people who are dealing with registration as well. So if there's proper coordination and working together, I think it can work. We should be able to get there. And then we're happy that the focus is not only on registration, because we've always raised the issues of we need to look at the bottom of the issues. Where are these goods, for example, coming from? We've seen the government has been confiscating pesticides. That is a good thing, because at least what happens, people are trying to kill the rats in the townships and only to find that they're actually poisoning the food that is there. So there has been some confiscation, but I'm not sure if it's enough. Because if you walk around,
And I was going to get in there because I'm not sure if it's enough. And I'll make an example. I was in KwaZulu-Natal, for example, this past weekend, right? And when you walk around, there's people who are saying, if you want to kill rodents in your store, I've got just the thing for you. And these were people that were walking around and they were selling it, for example, in Newcastle. And you ask yourself then, while these processes are unfolding, how much work is also being done on the ground to make sure, I mean, we talk about 41 people who have died, 38 children and 3 adults. But right now, the process is on what needs to be done at the top and the processes, but is there enough on the ground?
I don't think it's enough, because if you ask government or anyone else now to say, what stops the poisoning? No one will tell you. It's almost like a guesswork to say people were helped by faith that the poison just, for example, on its own stopped, because no one actually knew what actually caused the poisoning, except for those isolated cases of poisoning. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Some of the things will take years because you need a proper spatial planning. You need to make sure that there's a proper cleaning in the townships and informal settlements. And it's not an easy thing because some of the informal settlement, people just saw a vacant land and then they decided to stay there. So there are not even enough roads if you're trying to pass there, trying to kill the rats. And yeah, it's a very, very complicated situation. And we need to find a way of beefing up the regulations, but also the people who can go and check. The health inspectors, I think we need a lot of health inspectors to go and then just do spot checks and then surprise visits. Because also if you announce that you are coming, then people put everything in order. But once you leave, everything is there. And again, we need a lot of public awareness so that people must know that some of these things that get bought, because I did walk into one of the taxi ranks in the townships and ask people if I want to buy, because this thing called, I don't know what it's called in English, it's called Ali Pirimi. You just walk in there, they don't necessarily sell it directly, but you can ultimately get it if you just walk into a taxi rank. So there's a public awareness that we need to do to say, let's not buy this. And we know rats are also irritating when you see them all around, but we need to find another way.
So when you then think about this finally then, it's one thing as we talk about the rodents, the pesticides and all of that. There's another issue possibly here, because when you speak to some of the associations, they tell you that when it comes to this registration process, there are concerns that should they not be able to get the numbers that they are hoping for, there may be a vacuum. And there may then be a need for some of the businesses to come in. And will these necessarily be local businesses, begs the question. So is there a plan to ensure that the local economy thrives and we do not see, some of the big stores coming into these, townships in order to try and close the gaps?
Yes, as you know, nature does not allow for a vacuum. So once the registration process gets delayed for longer, and once there's no confidence in the local Spaza shops, what you are fearing is exactly what you are fearing, that the big retailers may get there. They were already getting there in the first place. But what we're seeing, we've been having conversations with some of them to say, if you go to a township or a rural area, make sure that the ownership structure of that shop or whatever the form it takes, the ownership structure must include the local Spaza shop owners, so that you don't take bread away from them. You make them owners of the shop, so that at least they can benefit. Because remember, all these people have been depending fully on the income that comes from the Spaza shop. Some of us and some of our people were even sent to universities through Spaza shop income. So we don't want to kill that Spaza shop business or economy, because it's also convenient from a customer point of view. But we know the big business retailers are probably looking at it and looking at an opportunity. But on the other hand, I think we're still calling for government to have regulations that says no foreign ownership of Spaza shops should be allowed. There may be some exceptions depending on how someone came to the country, but you can't come here with a study permit and then all of a sudden you're owning a Spaza shop.
All right, let's see then what happens with this process. Thank you so much for talking to us. That was Kganki Matabane, the Chief Executive Officer at the Black Business Council.